Now I want to introduce our keynote speaker this evening, William McNary. Mr. McNary has worked for public interest for 25 years. Several organizations. We don't have time to list all the organizations, but I will name a few. Citizen Action Illinois, Public Campaign, the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability, Women's Voices, Women Vote. Mr. McNary was elected as an Obama delegate and served as the Illinois Convention floor whip at the Denver Democratic Convention in 2008, a North Lawndale resident. He is familiar with the challenges faced by families served by the Center for Learning. He is also aware of the community's potential. We are very honored to have him with us this evening. Please join me in welcoming Mr. William McNary.
Well, good evening. My mama always told me you can tell what kind of a crowd you're standing in front of by the way they greet friends or by the way they greet strangers when they greet you. So let's try that again. Good evening.
Good evening.
Now that's more like it. You all do my mama proud. Well, thank you, Leah, for that generous introduction. Every time I hear an introduction like that, it reminds me of a funeral I went to one time. The minister was talking about what a loving husband he was to his wife, what a caring father he was to his children, what a generous benefactor he was to the community. About 5 minutes into that eulogy, the widow nudged her daughter and said, "Would you look up there and see if that's your daddy in that casket that they're talking about?" Thank you, Leah, for such a challenging introduction. ABC 7 News is Chicago's #1 station for news, and that is in no small part because of the dedication, the professionalism, and the integrity of award-winning journalist Leah Hope. Can you give her another round of applause for the work that she's doing here tonight? At Citizen Action Illinois, we say there are 3 kinds of people. There are people that make things happen, there are people that watch things happen, and then there are people that don't know what's happening. I can't think of any place else in the world I would rather be on a Thursday evening than right here in the historic St. Ignatius, in the greatest city in the world, Chicago, in a room full of aggressive progressives. People who are not just content to spectate or speculate or pontificate or postulate about life, but people who are active participants in the movement for social justice and social change. I truly believe, because you all are gathered here tonight, our children will be more secure, our children will learn better, and our children will enjoy a meaningful and fulfilling life because of the work that the Carole Robertson Center for Learning has done, is doing, but most importantly, what you all are getting ready to do. And because we activists and advocates are often inundated and underappreciated and undercompensated and seldom celebrated, why don't y'all celebrate yourselves tonight with a great big round of applause? Let Barack and Michelle and Malia and Sasha and Bo hear you all the way at the White House. What a joy, what an honor, what a treat to be standing here in this historic place, at this historic time, at this historic moment in history. I truly believe that we stand on the shoulders of those who come before us. And so we thank God for strong shoulders on which others can stand. We thank God for strong legs and sturdy wheelchairs to help us further the journey. And we thank God for strong minds that break strong chains that dare threaten our human rights and our civil liberties. And for their strong shoulders and their strong legs and their strong minds, would you please give Center Director Saratho Burnett and former directors Gail Nelson and Maria Raylan a round of applause, not only for what they do, but for their commitment to social justice. We judge our elected officials not when they appear in our mailboxes or our ads during television shows or at train stops during election season, but with and whom they appear in the off-election season. And I see one elected official. I see an alderman here. If there are any elected officials in the House, would you please stand? They could be anywhere they want to legitimately, but they are here with us tonight, and thus they are worthy of your applause. Alderman Bob Fioretti is here. And while you're in a clapping mood, would you do me a favor and give a woman who worked so tirelessly and ceaselessly behind the scenes, a woman who dotted every I and crossed every T to make sure my wife and I got here smoothly and that we were accommodated warmly. Is Miss Wendy Mitchell-Gill here? Give her a hand for appreciation. Thank you, Wendy. Living with me is no day at the beach. I'm opinionated, I'm strong-willed, and I'm very passionate about what I believe in. I have a problem, though. I have a wife who's the same way. She's independent, she's tough, and she's just as passionate. And 9 times out of 10, when we agree, everything is wonderful. But during that 10th time, things can get a little rough. We were having one of those passionate discussions recently one night, and after it got so heated, I paused to ask her. I said, honey, you're not thinking about leaving me, are you? And she said, no, honey. When I married you, I vowed until death do us part. I am not thinking about leaving you. I'm thinking about killing you. Give a hand to a woman who's not only loving me to death, but is generous enough to share me with this movement. Stand, Sheila. I talk a lot of stuff, but when it comes to Sheila, I'm just like Gladys Knight. I'd rather live in her world than live without her in mine. To all the speakers and the presenters and the entertainers who preceded me, let me thank you for giving our heads good information. Let me thank you for giving our hearts good inspiration, and thank you for giving our feet good instruction. Having me speak on an occasion like this is never a 50-50 proposition. I guarantee you, I have already received more inspiration and wisdom than I can possibly give. So with that disclaimer, and with all respect to Kanye West, let me tell you, like Kim Kardashian told her first husband, I won't keep you long. Let me be time disciplined on my topic. We all do better when we all do better. 50 years ago, 1963 was a defining year for the civil rights movement. In January of that year, Alabama Governor George Wallace stood on the steps of the state capitol bellowing the words, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. And in April of 1963, Dr. King, his lieutenant, Reverend Abernathy, and a local Birmingham civil rights leader, Reverend Shuttlesworth, defied an injunction barring their planned peaceful protest for civil rights. And under the brutal command of Sheriff Bull Connor, hundreds of demonstrators were beaten and fire-hosed, bitten by police dogs, and arrested. It was during this arrest, by the way, in April, that Dr. King wrote his famous letter from a Birmingham jail in response to 8 white Alabama clergymen who argued that civil rights should be fought in the courts and not in the streets. However, after the images of the violence perpetuated on those nonviolent black protesters were aired, many of them children, Americans who thought that the civil rights was America's most important issue jumped from 4% to 52%. In June of 1963, President John Kennedy gave his famous national address from the White House Oval Office in support of civil rights. But alas, on that very same night, Medgar Evers, the Mississippi field director for the NAACP, was killed in his driveway of his Jackson home when an assassin's bullet struck him in the back. This past August, we commemorated the 50th anniversary of the momentous March on Washington, the 1963 March for Jobs and Freedom, which drew over 253,000 people from all across the country. But in September of 1963, we went from civil rights movement's biggest triumph to that year's biggest tragedy as the world gasped in horror when homegrown terrorists bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, killing 11-year-old Denise McNary and 14-year-olds Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, and Carole Robertson. 4 innocent girls who paid the ultimate sacrifice with their lives for freedom's cause. And in November of 1963, President John F. Kennedy was the victim of an assassin's bullet as he rode in a parade in Dallas, Texas. Too often when we remember these 4 little girls, we sometimes move too quickly from girls to symbols. Indeed, the Congressional Gold Medal, which was awarded recently in an all-too-rare display of bipartisanship, it reads this way. It says, to award posthumously a Congressional Gold Medal to Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNary, Carole Robertson, and Cynthia Wesley to commemorate the lives they lost 50 years ago in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church, where 4 little black girls' ultimate sacrifice served as a catalyst for the civil rights movement. But personally, I often wonder, what would have happened if Carole Robertson had lived? What kind of woman would she have become? She would have only been 3 years older than me. I heard she was vivacious. I've been known to be vivacious. I heard that she was in the school band and played the clarinet. I was in the Chicago grammar school band, and I played the clarinet. I heard she loved books, and she had a voracious appetite for reading. I love to read. I heard she was smart, a straight-A student. Well, 3 out of 4 ain't bad. But she's not here. She left us 50 years ago, but her name and her light and her legacy lives on through the Carole Robertson Center for Learning. And let me pause right here to say how much it means to have Carole's sister, Diane Robertson Braddock, with her tonight. She could have succumbed to bitterness and hatred and anger, but instead she comes here tonight and fills this gathering with joy and consolation and hope. You honor us with your presence. So let us honor her and her family for what they're doing with us with love and gratitude. Diane and her family, please stand. And if she were here tonight, Carole Robertson would probably be pleased by some of the social progress that has been made. Not only have blacks achieved voting rights, but America has elected an African-American president. Not only have women moved beyond barefoot and pregnant, we've come to realize that a woman's place is not only in the House, but also in the Senate. And in certainty, someday soon, a woman's place will be in the Oval Office in the White House someday soon. We will soon bring all of our immigrant sisters and brothers out of the shadows and into the light, for we're on the verge of passing comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship. And soon here in Illinois, our gay brothers and sisters who love each other in a committed relationship will be allowed to marry. She would probably be pleased by some of our social progress, but we have a long way to go. In Africa, the former president of South Africa, the great Nelson Mandela, teaches us a concept known as Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the profound sense that we are human only through the humanity of others. That if we are to accomplish anything in this world, it will be in equal measure to the work and achievements of others. We all do better when we all do better. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King expressed the concept of Ubuntu this way. He said, "We are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. What affects one directly affects all indirectly. Ubuntu, we all do better when we all do better." You see, Dr. King knew that economic rights were just as central to his vision as social and civil and economic rights. But we can't have racial justice without economic justice, and we can't have a democracy without both. If our country is supposed to be a democracy and not just a corporate state, then its people must have freedom, and not just freedom of speech or freedom of religion or freedom of assembly, but freedom from hunger and freedom from lack and freedom from poverty. Thus, one definition of democracy is shared prosperity. Chicago is a magnificent city. It has a wealth of people, talent, and resources that are capable of bringing high quality of life to all of its residents. Yet, it is also plagued by deep and serious problems, problems of injustice that can only be addressed through concerted public action. The gleaming downtown residential towers and spiffy townhouses that fill once abandoned rail yards, along with the condos and lofts that so densely populate the neighborhoods surrounding the Loop, house nearly 500,000 Chicagoans, most of whom are well-educated and comfortable, if not affluent. But unfortunately, this is not the case for the other Chicago, where 2.5 million people, 5 out of 6 residents, live. These neighborhoods not only include areas of deep and entrenched poverty, but working-class neighborhoods scarred by continued job flight, declining incomes, substandard schools, gang violence, and the need for public services. And the economic challenges of the last several years have only forced these problems into bolder relief. Only leadership based upon progressive values can fulfill the city's promises for all. We need leadership with a moral vision based upon progressive values that seeks to make life better for everybody in all communities. And this battle must be bigger than partisan politics. This is a battle for the soul of our city. And whether we reduce this battle to how much money I made on Wall Street in the last 5 minutes and how much can I make in the next 5, I got mine, you get yours, or whether we will affirm the basic American ideals that, yes, we are responsible for ourselves, but we're also responsible for each other. I am my sister's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. We need to communicate that vision through a concrete program that unites rather than divides the vast majority of low, moderate, and middle-income Chicagoans of all races and all ethnicities. You see, they can only win if they divide us. Black against white, citizen against immigrants, union workers versus non-union workers, straight against gay. How cruel, how cynical, and how divisive. Let us commit ourselves and rededicate ourselves, Carole Robertson, tonight to knitting together that inescapable garment of destiny that Dr. Martin Luther King talked about. Well, what affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. We all do better when we all do better. I want to invite y'all to go to a website at some point. I'm not going to talk about that now. I was going to, but I want you to go to www.abetterillinois.org. I'm just going to quickly say that Illinois is not broke, regardless of what you hear. And we need to stop concentrating on austerity and start concentrating on the words inequality. The America is not broke. The state isn't broke. Nobody disputes that there's a multi-billion-dollar crisis in Illinois. The chaos and the unpredictability of the crisis is a major drag on the business climate, and we do need to fix it. But America isn't broke. Its tax system is broken. It favors the wealthy and the well-connected and puts the tax burden on everybody else. Two-thirds of Illinois corporations paid not one copper cent, not one Lincoln head penny in state income taxes. The state's richest taxpayers pay half as much of their income in state taxes as the average household. As a result, we are losing billions of dollars in revenue, shorting the state's coffers, leaving it unable to pay his bills. And so the solution is to make sure that we have a fair tax where people who make higher incomes pay higher taxes and the people who make lower incomes even pay lower taxes. You can find out about that on the website. But I want to run to my close. I was brought up Baptist. I closed more than once, but this is my final close. Y'all ready for some good news? I said, y'all ready for some good news? Well, Gandhi once said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. Ain't that good news? Man, ain't that news. Now, a lot of people are progressive. They want to skip that third part. They want to get past the education part directly to the winning part, but you can't do it. Anything worthwhile having in this country has never been gotten unless people sacrifice. For example, if you have this romantic view of social justice movement, take the civil rights movement. If you have a romantic view of the civil rights movement, you think that Rosa Parks sat on the front of the bus, Dr. Martin Luther King gave a great speech, and then black people got free. Come on now. That discounts the thousands and thousands and thousands of people of all races who struggled too valiantly, who bled too profusely, who died too prematurely for freedom's cause. For we know that lasting social change will not be made by heroes or sheroes, not Supermen or Wonder Women or the Avengers. History will only be made, the only way history has always been made, is when ordinary people get in motion. Natural men and natural women. But I need y'all to step it up a notch, brothers and sisters. I need y'all to put a little extra in your ordinary, a little super in your natural. I need y'all to go all in and have the courage to stand on the front side of history and help change it. How many of y'all got an iPhone? Raise your hand. How many iPhones in the audience? Whoa, a lot of iPhones. I still got a BlackBerry. Working on an iPhone. On October 5th, 2011, the whole world mourned the death of one of America's true geniuses, Steve Jobs. On October 5th, 2011, literally changed the way we communicate with each other, how we use computers, how we listen to music. He turned what looked like an abandoned business office into one of the most valuable companies in the world with $342 billion. He truly was an extraordinary man. But on October 5th, 2011, the same day, the exact same day that Steve Jobs died, an ordinary man died in Birmingham, Alabama. He was a truck driver. He was a cement worker. He was a bootlegger. Got arrested for selling moonshine, and he redeemed himself and became a minister. He became very active in the NAACP. When they outlawed the NAACP in Alabama, he started another organization dedicated to ending segregation through nonviolence. In the early 60s, he and other protesters were attacked with dogs and fire hoses. When he announced that he would challenge the segregation of buses in Montgomery, one Christmas day, 15 sticks of dynamite exploded beneath his bedroom window. The floor was blown out from under him. When he tried to enroll his children in a white school, the Ku Klux Klan with chains and baseball bats and brass knuckles beat him unconscious. His wife was stabbed in the hip. The leader of the organization he founded called him the most courageous civil rights fighter in the South. The organization he founded was called the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The leader who said that about him was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and the man who died on the exact same day as Steve Jobs. His name was Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, an ordinary man who did extraordinary things for the cause of freedom. Reverend Martin Luther King became famous, Steve Jobs became famous, and rightfully so. But Dr. King said one thing. He said, everybody can be great because everybody can serve. And every day I say a prayer. I said it before I came over here. I said, thank you, God, for my freedom. Allow me never to be any man or woman's slave, but allow me to be every man and every woman's servant. Men and women can make people famous, but for us, let us stop seeking fame. Let us start seeking greatness. I know times are tough. We've been through tough times before. But let us climb up our valley of despair and go up the rough side of the mountain and look up and look over and see a better Chicago, a Chicago that works for all of us. And my brothers and sisters of Carole Robertson, let me thank you, not only for your commitment to the community, but for getting in motion. Thank you for the hard, unglamorous, day-to-day work of learning the facts, educating your members, reaching out to your neighbors, and getting them to come out and volunteer. Thank you, Carole Robertson. Because of your work, people who once had little or no hope and little or no power came together to get things done to improve this neighborhood. So thank you, Carole Robertson, for keeping our children safe and making our children learn better and keeping our children nurtured and keeping our children healthy and giving our children a higher quality of life. Thank you, Carole Robertson. You've come a long way, but we've got a long way to go. To paraphrase Dr. King, let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with greater determination and move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make Chicago what it ought to be, and let the record reflect that on this night, Thursday, September 19th, 2013, a group of justice-seeking, truth-telling, freedom-loving people came together, starting in their neighborhood, to build a Chicago that educates our children, tends our sick, creates jobs, protects the middle class and those struggling to get in the middle class, and bring our undocumented brothers and sisters out of the shadows in the light. We all do better when we all do better in the spirit of Dr. King and in the loving and fond memory of Denise McNary and Addie Mae and Cynthia Wesley and Carole Robertson. Let's go to work. Thank you for having me. Congratulations on this glorious commemoration.